Okay, watcher, welcome back.
Right, now this one I'm going to do just the last fabrication job on that nose cone. I've got one more little thing to do before I can get involved in the bodywork. Fabrication stuff involves heating, welding, annealing, all that. And you can't do that when you've put paints and other processes into it. It will just bubble it off and trash it. So before I get involved in that bodywork, the bodyworking on the sides, which I'm really looking forward to, I've got all the materials ready and everything, the primer and everything, and all the sealant for the welds on the insides, quite a lot of that. Before I could even go there, I've got one more task to do, and it's an ode to legality of MOT. So rather than tell you, I'll show you. So come and have a look what I've got to do today to bring you over. Right, here we are. Now, as you can see, the front light looks the biz. Yeehaw, done. But that's just a light. Now, this is an old school bike. The task for today is a side light or running light. They're called side lights in cars because they're on the side, but on a bike, they're on the running lights. Now, if you go back to the first video on this, you remember the big screen it had. It had the big fox eye headlight, and above it, just a little running light. I might even have it actually. Let's have a look. Hang on a minute. Rummage. Right, that thing there was mounted like that above the headlight. So that's the headlight, that's dip and main, and that was a running light. And if that's fitted, I'm not going to use that, don't worry, I'm going anywhere. If it's fitted, then it has to work. This is the way MOT works, and what this is about is MOT. I spoke to my buddy Sean, who runs an MOT station, does all my MOTs and tyres and stuff, and I just cleared this and checked it with him. You have to have what was originally fitted. So I've got a proper headlight with dip and main beam. That's correct. That's all going to be fine. Indicators I'm going to deal with. Somebody said you're going to fit indicators inside of that. Honestly, think about these things before you ask. Can you imagine what indicators there would look like? It looked like that robot cartoon thing, wouldn't it? Like a couple of stupid ears. So no, there's nothing going to get bolted in the side there. Nothing at all. The indicators are a completely separate project, and I think you'll like what we're going to do with them. But for now, this is about that light. I've got to mount a light. Now, obviously, anything mounted on the front of that is going to look just shit, basically. It's going to ruin that whole effect. So I've got a plan, a cunning plan, my lord. Now, this is the light that I've wired in. That light back there, this was the wire feed into the wiring loom. It goes up inside, and on the end of it, I've just put that. That's like a, I don't know, whatever it is, a million lumen LED. Let me just, hang on, switch the ignition on and switch on the side light. So you got side light, oops, and headlights, and then over that side dip and main. So those two switch positions must produce two separate lights. So when I switch that on, that light comes on. So I've already wired the light in. It's already there, it's already working, and that's separate to the headlight. So when the headlight's on, that has to be running. And it has to be shown, just dangle it on its wire, that has to be shown to the front. Now obviously, the stupidest thing in the world would be to just cut a hole and bolt it in there. Look like a big bindi on the front of your bike. It's just horrible. So no, that's not going to go on there, but I do have a plan. I've checked the MOT guy, like I said, and it does have to go on the front facing forward. It can't go anywhere else. It does really have to go in the vicinity of the light. And if you're going to make a custom bike that's a bit radical and has got a bit of a naughty exhaust and dum-de-dum, and it's going to have some other naughty stuff on the back and so on, that's a little bit bending the rules, you can at least try as hard as possible to make sure that you conform to the basic regulations, which is getting your lighting correct. And arguably, some people will argue, if you take that away and it's not fitted, it doesn't have to work. But because of this switch, it is fitted. The only time you don't have this switch is when you don't have any switch, like on Penny's bike, which just has no light switch at all. And it's the same on the Harley. The lights are on all the time. So because of that, effectively, you don't have to worry. But on these older bikes, you do. The MOT test, our sort of legality test every year here in the UK, would fail. Even my buddy wouldn't pass that. He has obligations. He has to cover himself. He's an official tester, and as such, he has to do it correctly, and that's correct. I wouldn't have him do it any other way. So I've got to make that light fit. That's what it's all about. So today, I'm going to whip this off and show you what I think is a good way to do it. I think I've come up with the right plans. It took me a little while, but I reckon this will work. Right, a couple of you made comments about this, saying that, you know, I could cover it up. Actually, that's quite cool. One of you guys said I could put a piece of sheet metal over that, like close it in and drill 4 holes in it. That's quite a good idea, I like that. But I've got so much to do. That's the sort of thing I would do as a really, I do like that, I really like that. Even you could even put a piece of glass over it. You could bond a piece of kind of acrylic. Oh, there's loads of stuff. And all you guys with your comments about hot glue guns, you're just so funny. Well, honestly, thanks for your suggestions. You know, sharing ideas, coming up with solutions to problems, to things that we've got to do. It has helped. You know, I appreciate it when people come up with something. There is an awful lot of stuff on not just this build, but on the Bandit and the other stuff I've done that you guys have suggested. So this is why I love YouTube. It is a big old nest of ideas. We're all thinking people. We all come up with ideas and solutions to things. We all think in different ways, and it really makes it cool when somebody pops something out like that idea of putting a screen across there and actually hiding the lights all together. I like that. I really like it. So that might get done, but not sure how yet. I haven't even noodled that one out. But this one, this light, I'll show you what I'm doing. Now let's move you down. There we go. Right. The light's going in the back, that little LED thing, and I'm going to put it about here. But I'm not going to cut a hole to show it. I'm going to cut a little kind of pepper pot of holes, just a little shape, like a little ring of drilled holes, tiny holes. So you won't, from kind of that angle, from the side, you won't even see there's anything there. And when this is painted, you'll see in the future the way this is going to be painted, it will disguise the holes as well. So you won't see them. And when the thing's switched on, you'll just see a light shining through. And yes, I've checked with the MOT guy and he said there doesn't have to be any beam, any pattern. There doesn't have to, because the normal rule of lights is you mustn't cover more than 50% of the light. In fact, it must be something like 49% of the light is allowed to be covered. And that allows for things like Harleys that have these light grills and so on. But you mustn't cover, or you mustn't obscure the beam, by the way. But the little running light, the little side light, it just has to show a light, just a light. It doesn't have to be, as long as you can see it from the front, good enough. So that's fine. So that's all I'm going to do. A little pepper pot of holes, a bit of precision drilling, measuring, getting it straight and center, and then obviously, again, in there, I've got to mount that thing on the back so that I can put it inside, flip it in, and it's removable, because I want this removable. So a little bit of thinking, make a little bracket, something similar to that to mount that LED thingy on, because it's got a bezel with a screw down nut, so something similar to that with a little cutout. So I'm going to make something similar to that first. That's the first task. So I can put it in there, and then with a little U-shaped cutout of that, they can then slot the light in it and clip it in place, and then drill the hole on the front where I know, when I know where it's going to be. Alright, first of all, just using a little piece of this, which is an off-cut from that. So not that the metal will reject the wrong metal or anything, but it's loads of this left because I cut a big load of it off, and that's quite cool and frugal to use what you have. I'm going to just, for now, I haven't measured anything yet, but that's obviously, look at that, the burrs on that are pretty lethal. So I'm just going to deburr it, clean it up, get it ready so I can start measurifying it. Switch it on and it goes faster. Found the original template in the bin. Always keep them if you're doing more stuff. There we go. Right, now 120 grit is too fine to reduce that to size, so I'm just going to use, where I marked it with a pencil, I'm just going to use 40 grit just to tear that into shape. Right, where are we? All right, 40 grit. Big difference in grittiness, coarseness. Glasses. Right, something else that's getting asked quite a lot is about this annealing. It seems to have captured your imagination a bit, so I'll give you a bit more insight on that. This annealing process where you heat up a piece of metal and soften it. A few of you have asked how long will the softness last after it's cooled? Well, forever, unless you bend it. And a big question, a common question is, as I said, it's 850 degrees. You heat that up till it's 800 to 850, and that's cherry red. Now, a few of you have quite logically said, well, how do we know it's 850 and what part of cherry red? Because the spectrum of red from dark maroon right through to yellow on metal heating or into white is quite a wide spectrum. That's nearly 1,000 degrees wide in temperature. So there is a perfectly scientific way of showing it, of working out exactly when you get to that critical point, and that's to touch it with a magnet. The steel itself, what I'm using here, is mild steel. I just started to heat that, then I stopped because I thought about this. I'll just do this properly in a minute. So at the moment it's magnetic, and it stops being magnetic at about 820 degrees. Once it cools back down, it will gain its magneticness back again, but while it's at 850, it will lose its magnetism. It will just drop off like stainless steel. So that's a great way to tell. So what I do, I mount the steel, because I'm just going to bend the ends. So I've got that affair. So I don't need the middle bit heated up and softened, I just need these ends. And it is a localized softening. Annealing is a localized process. So if you only heat that bit, then only that bit will be soft. And you can use that creatively, especially when you're bending things. You want to bend something with a fold in it. You can do a real localized heat. You can put, these clamps will absorb masses of heat. So you put a clamp either side of an area where you want to anneal, where the others you don't, to get a nice sharp fold, and these will absorb heat and stop the other pieces of metal getting hot. And only the piece that you're playing the lamp on, blow lamp, blow torch, whatever, been picked up on that too. It's not called a blow lamp, it's called a blow torch. Well, okay, one of these, when you put it on there and you play it on and that goes yellow, the rest doesn't. So look, too much talk, not enough action. Let's get that magnet. That's just a weld magnet. I'll just use that for clipping things. Hang on, show you. Down, babies. And stick that in the vise like that. And then as I'm heating, I can just touch it on there and feel whether that's magnetic or not. So that's the safest way to do it. Set these things up properly. There we are. And then you can do it safely. There we are. Okay, let's bring it back up. Right, so in both cases, that just got to the point where touching it on the magnet just didn't feel like it was magnetic at all. There's nothing there. So that's now properly annealed, each end, and that little section in the middle isn't, and it doesn't need to be because it's not relevant. I'm not going to bend it. I'm going to bend these ends. So I'm going to let that cool down. It's about 20 degrees in here, especially now I've been doing that, and that will take about 10 minutes, and it needs to be stone cold. So there's the answer to the question. How long does it stay soft, or can you still work it and so on? The question is, it's not about time, so there's no limit. It can, 5 years from now, that will still be annealed and it will still be soft. But the minute you move it, bend it, hit it, work it in any way, that's work hardening. It will become hard again. So if you're working it and it kind of goes a bit stiff and you're not getting what you want, just re-anneal it and it all relaxes again. It's a boring process. Well, it's a boring subject really, but it does seem to have captured imagination, so that's a bit of what it's about. Okay, let's put it on there. Screws to make a brew. See you in a minute.
Do you wanna go to the seaside? I'm not trying to say that everybody wants to go. I fell in love at the seaside. I handle my charm with time and sleight of hand. Do you wanna go to the seaside? I'm not trying to say that everybody wants to go. I fell in love at the seaside. I handle my charm with time and sleight of hand. But I'm just trying to love you any kind of way. But I find it hard to love you, girl, when you're far away. Do you wanna go to the seaside? I'm not trying to say that everybody wants to go, but I fell in love at the seaside. At the seaside.
Right. That story so far.
At the seaside.
That's pretty cool. And it's going to be welded in place, so it will be strong. And it's going to go pretty much kind of just in there, like that. That's its kind of position in the weld. But obviously welding that, and that's just going to get, literally, because it's got 4 holes in, it's just going to get plug welded in place. You just weld through the hole in a puddle, and then it's there forever. No need for fasteners because it will never come out. That will just be a bracket for the light to drop in and out of and nip up, as is quite obvious really. But I can't weld that in place until I know where the holes are. So I've got to decide externally where the holes are going to be, lateral axis, horizontal or perpendicular axis, and then get them absolutely in the right place and drill that little pepper pot effect holes. And then when I see those holes on the back, I can weld that accordingly over them. Up here for thinking. Right. Right, okay, so all centre punched. There's the damage. 21, there you go. 21 equidistant centre punch marks, and kind of like that. I think that's going to work. But I'm going to use a 4mm drill. The centre punch marks are 5mm apart-ish. Right, it's not. This isn't precision by any means. I'm not Keith Van Allen. This is just, you know, eye it up and see how it looks. So 4mm drill, 5mm apart. So when you drill the 2 holes, a 4mm drill is going to go 2mm either side of its centre point. So you're going to get a 5mm gap, and with a 2mm ingression into the space between, we're going to get 3mm gaps between those holes. At least that's the theory. Now they're not going to be accurate because I'm just doing it by eye. If that's done by a CNC machine or a CAD, then yeah, that's easy. They'll all be absolutely perfect. But this is done by hand, and that is going to have an element of error. So rather than trust, when we've got 3mm of gap between each hole, rather than trust the drill wandering off into the next hole, or especially when the holes start to get drilled, I'm going to use pilot holes, which is where you just drill a smaller hole, and it acts like a pilot to tow the bigger one through. So I'm using a 1mm drill. It's a tiny little jewellery drill bit, and I'm going to try and ping all those through as carefully as I can, and hopefully without breaking that, because those things, oops, airline, those things are as delicate as a needle. So if that lasts the game and I get all 21 holes drilled, then the next thing is to get the bigger drill on and get them through. Anyway, enough talk, let's get cracking.
If you like to gamble, I tell you I'm your man. You win some, lose some, it's still the same to me. The pleasure is to play it makes no difference what you say. I don't share your creed, the only card I need is the ace of spades, the ace of spades.
Okay, right, they're not, because all drills wander off, there's not that much symmetry there. The other idea, the other thinking that I had was actually cut a round hole, and this is why I've done this first, because if this didn't work out I can do the second one, plan B and all that. Is cut a round hole and then behind it mount the light, but behind it mount a piece of smoked acrylic or glass, which will give a bit like, hang on, stand still. Hang on, there you are. Now a bit like these lights in the first place, they've got like a sort of smoke glass and like that affair in the rear light. Now you can buy that stuff ever so easy, and I wonder whether just a hole with that behind it might look better. Because that kind of looks a bit like a speaker. Turn the radio up. Not sure. Don't like it. Even if that was perfect, and it's far from perfect, I don't like that. So I'm going to put a hole in there and then put the light behind it, and then I'll block off that hole with, like I said, a piece of acrylic, piece of glass, something I will source over the week. So best thing for marking the hole is a socket, because I've got a range of sizes. So there we are. Plan A failed, plan B. Let's get going. We go with 24mm. That covers all of the holes that are there. Leaves me some spare. Right. Easiest way, stand back and eyeball it.
Dancing with the devil, going with the flow. Yes, it's all a game to me. 7 or 11 snake eyes watching you. Double up or quit, double stakes or split. It's the ace of spades, the ace of spades. Born to lose, and gambling's for fools, but that's the way I like it, baby. I don't wanna live forever. And don't forget the joker.
There we are. Now that is sheet metal welding. Look at that, perfect. What I do, just in case you're going to do it, piece of aluminium that doesn't stay cold. Piece of aluminium that doesn't weld to the job because it's different metal, but it's laying against it, so it's acting as a heat sink. It's quite thick, it's 3mm thick, and it's taking the heat away from the sheet metal and preventing it from blowing through, meaning you can dwell on there long enough to get proper, decent penetration through the sheet metal, and plenty of little decent quality plug welds. So that little piece of metal there ain't going anywhere. Proper tough, lasts forever. And I'll just put some sealant over that along with the, Hang on. See everything in there. All those little tack welds that hold this on, or they'll get sealant on them, they'll put sealant over that as well. Right, let's try it on the bike, see if it works. But I'm going to clean this crap off first.
Pushing up the ante, you know you gotta see me. Freedom of weak, the dead man's hand again. I see it in your eyes, take one look and die. The only thing you see, you know it's gonna be the ace of spades, the ace of spades.
I think the pepper pot idea was great. I liked that. It would have been really cool and almost invisible once it's done, and that was the aim. But it proved almost impossible. You know, you've got to try these things. I'm a contrary git. I don't listen to what other people say most of the time. I just do it myself. I try. If I fail, I just do something different. It ain't hard. But at least I know, and I know from my own experience that it doesn't work. Hang on a minute. It's better. But that, in the end, was the best solution, because I always knew that if the holes, you know, as I said, they proved impossible to drill symmetrically. By hand, drilling by hand, stuff always wanders off. You know, you can pillar drill it. You know, you gotta have kind of, I would say you'd almost got to have like a lathe bed and then line everything up and bolt it solid in, or just do it by machine, just to, you know, one of those machines that does it. But hey ho, this is a hand built piece and it will be better for it. There's a little crease. You can see there's a little crease across there where the plug welds have heated it, and I shall just planish them down with a hammer later when the bodywork comes. But I've gone with that way in the end. Just going to drill that. That's a 23mm hole, and what I'm going to do with that is put a mesh on the inside. I've seen some super fine mesh. The holes are 1/2 mm. They're 0.5mm holes. Very, very fine mesh. You saw the light coming out of that. It's absolutely outrageous. That emits so much light that I want to dumb that down. So there's going to get a really fine thick mesh in there. It's stainless steel, and I'll bond it on the inside with some panel bond, and then it will get painted, possibly, I don't know, but I think grey stainless steel, because this is the base colour of this is going to be greys, silvers, blacks, monochrome. It's going to be monochrome colours, so ultimately it won't matter too much. It may even be better to get brass. You can get brass or copper plated mesh. It's kind of a stainless steel or aluminium mesh that's plated, so you get gold, copper, bronze colours, black, whatever you like, anodized stuff. But there's all manner of things, but I will cover that hole up, so you won't see it. You won't see that at all. You'll just see the light emit from it when the time comes. There we are. 5 hours. 5 hours just to cut a hole and weld a bracket on the inside to mount the light, just with some plug welds. I hope you gained a little bit from it today. A few of you were asking, you know, a bit more detail, please, because we're trying to do it ourselves. Thank you for that. I really appreciate it. It's pretty awesome to be an inspiration to anyone. It's an honour, so I appreciate that. Where this goes, it's each episode. Each time I get a day in the garage, up, you know, 4 or 5 hours, I think of something else. You know, like I said, Plan A didn't work. Plan B, I think that's worked. I like that. It would just, like I said, once it's covered up, it would look great. Next thing, bodywork. I'm going to cover these in. These little ridges here. They're going to get blended in or moulded in the old-fashioned way, like you mould welds, and therefore you won't see them. So it'll come around and it'll just be straight, but it'll be thick in there. And to those of you who said, why didn't I bend that inwards? I don't want that sort of bent in look all the way around. I want a little bit of kind of in out to it like that as it comes down, just as a little bit of sculpture really, so it looks a little bit better. But there we are, Harley Davidson Sportster tank. Remember that? It's still there. All the bracketry in place. So next step, bodywork. I've got to drill a hole in the bottom. Yes, I know about that, but I'm thinking whether to do it in the middle or whether to do it to one side, because when the bike sits on a side stand, that will be the lowest point. So I'm going to think about that a bit longer. And if I think about things for a while, I come up with the right solution. I often do them and then think of something else. A little bit like pepper pot holes. Okay, so there we are. I'm going to call it a day now. I'll show you the wall of friends. You saw at the beginning. I just now with a few extra up, so thank you all so much for your amazing gifts of the number plates. They really do mean a lot to us. Around the world, we're watched in something like 63 countries now, which is awesome. Okay, 10 of those are, you know, more than 500 viewers. The others are much smaller, just ones or twos. But it's great to know that in places like Peru, we have 50 viewers. That's just awesome. I love it. So if you live in Peru or anywhere that's really far-flung, send us a number plate from your country. If you're allowed to, we'll put it on the wall and you can see it in the videos and we know where you're watching from, and that's all good. So there we are. I'm going to shut up. I'm going to call that done for today. Thanks for watching and ride safe. I'll see you next time. I'll leave you with the wall of friends.
Pulses 50-foot high through the fumes and haulage. It's sometimes hard to know if the prize is stateside of Nuevo Laredo. Every siren has a weak spot, as everything has a beginning and an end, and when the face you trust most is no longer the one on which you can depend, when the fight feels futile and life's injustice wins, where's my sunlight when the shitstorm begins?